No, I just Right. Lights, camera, action.
We're off.
We're off. I declare the meeting open, the council meeting open, people. Welcome everybody. Do we have any apologies? No apologies? No apologies. I'll just walk into a wakataki here. He waka eke noa. It means a canoe in which we are all in together. Urgent business or late items. We have one late item here for the public excluded. Would someone like to recommend that we accept? Happy to, Councillor McCrosty. Seconder, Councillor Graham. All those in favour? Aye. Carried. Any declarations of interest?
One was item 4, or abstaining.
Item 4, Councillor McCrosty and Councillor Cotton.
Item 2, Your Worship, I'm the chair of the applicant. And I can answer any questions if needed.
That's not abstaining.
Does anyone have any other conflicts of interest above? No? Well, before we move on to the public forum, Linda has got a couple of presentations to make for the water services team.
Come on, boys. Thank you, Your Worship. So this is 2 of our treatment operators who have achieved their level 4 certificates. Norton for water, which has taken him a wee while, about 2 years almost. So he's moved from being a training operator to a fully fledged water treatment operator. So well done, Norton. Thank you. And also Neil Higgins, and Neil has achieved his level 4 certificate for wastewater treatment. Neil achieved that in almost record time, so less than a year, so well done. Lots of hard work. Both these guys are both new to the industry, so this is a real milestone achievement for them and for our team. Well done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've got one more presentation before we move into the public excluded and public forum, sorry. And I'm super excited, as always, in council. Today we're very fortunate. We have an esteemed guest who is all about community. Today we are recognising the long service of Jeff Davidson. Jeff, would you like to come up, please? Now, I had to get Anna to tell a few porkies on our behalf, and it worked off. It worked well. You're here. Thank you, Mr. So I'll be calling on Roger shortly, but so today we're recognising the long service of Jeff Davidson, the current chair of the Lawrence Chuapika Community Board. Jeff has been a board member since 1989, and we believe that Jeff is the longest serving community member in the country. Next week, Jeff will be recognised nationally at the LGNZ AGM, which is why today we've asked Jeff to come in unbeknown to him. We want to thank and acknowledge your commitment, Jeff, to your community and your local board. And on behalf of the entire Clutha District Council, I'd like to ask everyone to please raise your hands to Jeff. Roger, if you can enlighten a wee bit, but Jeff, when Roger and I both started on the community board in 2001, Jeff was there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, firstly, congratulations, Jeff. Probably from a personal point of view, when you started at the board, you were there with my father, and then once you got rid of him, you got me. and Jock at the same time. So, and I guess through that time, you've been quite a guidance for us. I know I talk to you quite often about community board stuff and council stuff, so it's really cool to be able to do that. And I'm sure other members of the boards over the years have appreciated your leadership and also your input into our community. A wee funny story, I remember one time, I think the CEO might have been Kieran Keogh, and we were having an argument about the Waipori Cemetery, and Jeff decided he was going to call truce, and one time he started raising his finger at me like this, and I said, "Don't wave your finger at me, Mr. Chairman, I find it offensive." So he grabbed his finger and started doing it. So, the Davidson family are family friends, Jeff's a mate, so this is a real honour and a pleasure to be able to be here and share this moment with him. So well done, Jeff. It's awesome.
Oh, yeah. Thanks, everybody. It's been a long time, probably too long, but I've enjoyed every minute of it. So thanks very much for the honour. And Jeff actually nominated me to run for councillor and to stand for mayor, so I thank him quite regularly for the honour.
No, you do.
And we've Brad, Jeff's lovely wife of a lot longer than 37 years. These flowers for 50 years. We've got these flowers for Joss. She deserves it.
Shall we let you talk about amalgamation, what he thinks he's here for?
Yeah, we'll tell them the story now. I don't need to. Thanks very much. Thank you. Thank you. You can go home now, Jeff. Roger was serious, Jeff. There's no talk about amalgamation. That was yesterday. Right. On to public forum. We've got one member of the public. Have we? Is there more than one or? Welcome. Welcome, Phil. Oh, I'm away. Rightio. Yeah, good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and councillors, and thank you for the opportunity to speak here today. For those that don't know me, I'm Phil Barrett, and believe it or not, I'm actually here to help you out a wee bit. I bring a message from the ratepayers. I'm not to take it away from you, Jeff. It's an amazing effort to put all that time in, so I'm not going to rain on your parade, but I have got a few sticky things to bring up. It's frustration that has brought me here today. And it's also frustration that some of you will know I had a bit of an outburst down the street the other night. And so Steve, first up, I'll apologise to you. And for the most part, I do try and keep myself respectful when I'm up here. But out in the community at the moment, right now, there's many people that are frustrated and fearful, and they're worried about their futures and how they're going to manage with the increased rates prices that just keep coming. And it seems just a few months ago that the community elected a new council. And the message was quite clear back then that we wanted change and we wanted a new direction. Admittedly, you lot out here inherited a bit of a mess from the last 10 years. I also lost my glasses, so I'm just trying to make do here. Frustration continues for us because even though we can successfully vote for change, we're stuck with the unelected staff behind the scenes that just pick up the paperwork and carry on. So the perception out there at the moment is we're just getting a whole lot of different people doing the same things. Yes, the job is difficult, but remember you wanted it. Now we need representation. We don't need a continuation of what's going on, what was going on. And yes, the government has started a new form of democracy that basically gives us little options. And the council, you know, they're saying now that the council just needs to do something or we will do it for you. But once again, that falls on you because you're our representatives.
And you're here collectively with about 67 other authorities that represent around only 2.2 million ratepayers in the whole country. That's all there is to pay all the bills. So if the government is forcing your hand, it is your job to tell them no. And it's got to start here, because where else can it start? We can't just go straight to the top. Sorry. And don't worry about all the fancy talk and workshops and things like that to try and twist your thinking. That's the staff here doing their job. That's their job. Your job is to represent us, the ratepayers. And it's not simply to deliver the message given to you by further up. If we can't get that representation, we might as well just do away with the whole lot and get a commissioner in. And they can just come down and tell us what the government wants. It's actually that simple. Now, we have families out there right now with children missing out on opportunities because there's no money left in the budget. They just can't afford anything else. They're struggling to make ends meet. And some of them aren't even doing that. I teach all of them daily. And this just isn't the lower end of the economic spectrum. There's young people out there with both people working, kids in daycare, trying to pay a mortgage off. And that's our future we're mucking around with. People on fixed incomes cannot just keep finding money. If it was that simple to just keep finding money, if it's a budgeting problem, then why aren't we doing it here? Because every year you seem to need more and more. It's not about what you get, it's about what you spend. These are the voices of the community outside these doors. You guys are pretty insulated from what's going on, I can tell. These are people that are coming to me after the election. And lastly, an amalgamation will not solve your problems, possibly in the short term, with the government incentives that they're handing out to do things their way. But more people simply means more spending of more money, and it's just a bigger bill for more people to pay. Government agencies are not efficient. Their track record is exactly opposite of that. So be brave, cut services if you have to, cut staff, do what you have to do, think outside the square. And just to be clear, I'm not blaming you guys, the elected representatives, because I realise that cleverly engineered paperwork, sometimes given to you, is not really any options. They're not options at all. They're a means to an end. The responsibility must fall back on the staff to come up with something that's an actual option, something that you can vote on. And it's really just a change in thinking. That's really what we're looking for. It's no biggie. So thank you for your time and good luck.
Questions, councillors? No questions, councillors? Councillor Graham.
Yeah, just trying to phrase this as a question, really. You say that it's up to us to make the changes or make the stand, Phil. But do you think, this is where the question comes into it, that come October, that's where you can make the change?
What, at the election?
That's what's happening then. Unless
Yep.
we're going to the beer fest.
Yeah, I mean, once again, you're going to have all these people promising things to try and get back in. That'll just happen at the top end. There are some things that there's a lot of remits in that have actually been passed that will make a difference if they get in, or some others get in. But I mean, it's got to start here, does it not? I mean, I'm a mechanic. I fix engines. That's where I do my job. You're a councillor. You deal with government. That's your job, surely.
I would think. Do you think that's a pretty broad description?
Sometimes it's easier just to go simple.
Simple, yeah, right. Oh, Phil, thanks. Just in closing, I'd like to say we're 8 months into the new term. We've got some new councillors on board. Our first quarter of our new term was in a bit of an interruption with the weather event, which threw things out of kilter, and then after Christmas was upon us, and we didn't get the opportunity to really get functioning. But since we've got back together, it's been a very good functional council, and it's great to have some new councillors on the council, different ideas and different thinking. And yes, the changes you're talking about are possibly, they were set in stone 3 years ago at the long-term plan. Now's our opportunity with the new one coming up to actually make effective change in that respect. But the biggest challenge is going to be back on the communities to tell us what they can go without. Because if you want less, you're going to have to go without something. That's just the way it is, I'm afraid. So
I appreciate that.
So our biggest challenge is going to be going back to their communities and asking them, what can you do without? Because if we want to save money, that's the environment we're in at the moment. And I really appreciate what you're saying about the people you talk to. I talk to a lot of people very early in the mornings, and they're at the lower socio-economic scale as well, and they just work bloody hard too to put food on the table. So we're all well aware of what's happening out there, and we're not immune to it ourselves. But thank you for taking the time to come along and attend. Thank you.
Thank you, cheers.
Right, agenda item number 1. Welcome, Sharon.
Thank you, Your Worship. Okay, so I'm going to take this report mostly as read. Just wanted to raise a couple of points. There's a letter in here outlining the request and the purpose of the organisation that this is about, the Lawrence Tuapeka Health Incorporated. We've also included in here an options analysis for you, just some points to think about and stuff. And also I'd like to welcome Mark Hay to come up. He's come today to speak to you about this. The request came in a wee while ago and it was a little complex with the occupational right agreements and stuff, and Mark and I have had a few chats, and yeah, so he's come along to talk to you today. Right.
Welcome, Matt.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor and fellow councillors, thanks for this opportunity. For those who don't know me, my name is Mark Hay, and I'm here to present the submission on behalf of Tuapeka Health Incorporated in regards to our rates remission for our retirement cottages. I think our submission and the very good analysis done by the staff in the agenda report, I think our request is fairly well explained. So I think I'm probably more here to answer any questions that you may have regarding the submission or any thing about our operation in general.
So I'm just making a note here.
That's all right.
Your operation in general.
Yeah, so basically I feel like, it's very well summarised.
It is.
Yep, so there's not much more I can add without just reading it out, which is just going to be wasting your time. So I figured that the easiest way to go about it is just if anyone's got any questions regarding it.
Councillor Cotton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Thank you, Mark, for coming today, and I read the report with interest. Just a wee bit of clarity for me, please. I'm well aware that the cottages operate under an occupation right agreement. Does that give the resident some sort of tenure in a legal sense?
Yes,
It does.
to all intents and purposes, it's their private home.
Okay, so can they apply for rates relief themselves, or are the rates paid entirely by the health?
Through Your Worship, yes, they can, because part of the cost they pay gives them, there's a legal document under the rates rebates. They can apply for a rates rebate if they qualify.
Okay.
So technically, we actually pay the rates bill to Tuapeka Health Incorporated.
Yes.
Yep.
But Sharon's just said that.
Yes.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes, there's a special agreement for residents of under occupational rights agreements that they can apply for rates relief through the rebate.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Catherwood.
Sharon, so our community housing, there's no opportunity for our tenants for the council on behalf of our tenants to get a rates rebate, is there?
Through Your Worship, no, but there is no ownership there either.
Yeah.
It's this is a special part of the rates rebate law for people that have bought their homes, and they pay a fee to these guys to maintain it, pay the rates, pay the insurance and stuff. They still pay they have to buy the property, correct me here if I'm wrong.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah, so they own it technically,
Yes.
kind of.
Yeah,
Yes, with the
tenure.
agreement that they must sell it back to you when they no
Correct.
longer wish to
Yeah.
have it at a discounted rate. Is that right?
Yes, pretty much.
And they pay an amount each week or month or whatever it is for certain services that these guys provide.
Yeah.
The rates being one, insurance, maintenance,
Yeah.
rubbish.
Rubbish removal, window cleaning.
So have you previously applied for a rates rebate?
No.
Councillor McIntyre.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. Yeah, Mark, I'm just you're a bit new to that right to occupy and how that works. Not
Yeah, it can be.
stage yet, but the resident income, I was just surprised it was that low. You're taking $1,000 a month for household or for cottages, which works out at only about $60 a week.
It's $100 a week per resident.
Through Your Worship, I think in that there was only two.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, so
Yes.
we've now just recently
Okay.
signed up the fourth one. So
Yep.
we'll now be. Yeah, and it is low. So we came in, we had to set a figure that we thought it was going to be. We're governed by a statutory supervisor who oversees the whole operation, appointed by the government, and they really don't like us overcharging our residents. So, going into it cold as we did, it was a bit of a guess we were going to end up with.
So what happens? What happens if you're down? I don't know, it's about $5,000-6,000. Does the True Health cover that loss?
Yeah, so at the moment it will come out of the rest of the operation of the business. I would say though that the model quite often works on a small loss on the way through, because we do get that.
Recover at the end.
Yeah, that's right. It's called a deferred management fee at the end, but it is starting to get to a point of putting some stress on the rest of our operation.
Any further questions for Rodney?
Thank you, Your Worship. Just for more clarity, Mark, so if the Topeka Health Company if the tenants or the people with tenure apply for rates relief, that would mean they have to pay the rates instead of the health company, or not?
Well, that's where it gets confusing, because we pay the rates.
Yes.
We get billed for the rates
Yes.
directly, and then we have a weekly fee, which is supposed
Yes.
to cover a raft of things, including the rates. Yeah.
So through Your Worship, that
Yeah.
money, if they are successful in getting a rebate, goes back to the tenant
Yeah, not
to
to
cover
us.
the rates portion of what they're paying to these guys. It's relief to the tenant.
Okay.
Right.
And you
But
do
there's still
know
relief.
what that is, the rates portion, you will, what's on it?
Well, we do. We do.
Okay, thanks.
Right, now that they've made that clear, has anyone got any questions? No more questions, Mr. Hay? Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't it? Like when and please, Mark, our policy, the council's policy, it doesn't fit the criteria, which makes it even harder. Right, I'll seek a bit of advice, a bit of counsel off my CEO here. So what's
I know, Your Worship, the applicant has had the opportunity to speak to the matter. Staff have presented the paper. If there were no further questions of staff or the applicant, then you would just do your normal discussion. And no different from any other process you've had, Your Worship.
discussion? Councillor Grant.
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor. I think it's quite clear it does not fit within the criteria of the current rates remission policy, so I will not be supporting it. If the policy changes, well, then we could review it, but that's what policies are there for. If we stray outside policies too long, we'll just throw our money away. So I'm sorry. Policy is a policy is a policy.
Any further discussion? Councillors?
One more thing for me, Your Honour, just more for staff really. If this was successful or unsuccessful, does the applicant have the ability to apply again every year?
Through you, Your Worship. Yes, anybody can apply in a year. This was a different case because it didn't actually fit with the application process at all.
Yeah,
Councillor Gafford.
yeah, I mean, in discussion, I mean, I'm the same boat as Councillor Graham, it doesn't fit within our policy. I see, if we give to, this great, Tuapeka Health, doing a fantastic job, then we've got to go out and look at the rest of our community. We're just opening a tin of worms, so I'll not be in support of it, but I would hope that between yourself, Mark, and maybe some help from Sharon, from our staff, that get you guys over the line to get your hands on a rates rebate from the central government.
Through you, Your Worship. Tuapeka Health can't apply for the rates rebate.
Yeah, but there must be a way that they could sort themselves out, the tenant could pay the rates. There must be a way for you. Because they are the owner of the property, aren't they?
No, we actually don't own the property. They have the right to occupy the term of the agreement.
So I think there's an opportunity for I'll not be in support.
Councillor Cotton.
Thank you, Your Worship. I understand it doesn't meet the policy, and I, like Councillor Cathwood, see there could be a way forward with this, but in this instance, I'm going to stand with my community, and I will support.
Councillor Costi.
So as individuals, Sharon, people that don't own it, but they're occupying, they can individually come to us.
Through you, Your Worship, no, they can apply to central government through the rates rebate application process. Yeah, it's newish, not new, but it wasn't in when the original rates rebates came out, but the law changed for people who have occupational agreements.
So has this been tried with it? If they,
That would be not for Tuapeka Health to do, that would be for the people occupying.
yeah, but if they,
Yes, we have to help them.
Yeah.
Do that as well.
yeah, but what I'm asking is, have they done that
Yeah.
already?
Some have.
Your Worship, and Jules has mentioned to me as well. I mean, the interesting point is that Tuapeka Health could increase their fees to try to recover the costs, right? And then the residents that are eligible to apply for a rates rebate, and I'm not 100% sure whether all of them would be eligible, but you would think a number of them would be. If they're living there, then they can apply for the rates rebate. I don't believe it's a one-for-one thing, though. It's never been a one-for-one type arrangement, depending on the increase, because it's the same for us with rates, right? But that is the connection that is available. And the unfortunate thing is if Tuapeka Health have that difficulty in increasing the rental, then you don't have that ability to pass it on and recover it in whatever form you can recover either. So that's the problem. If, in an ordinary sense, the landlord gets an increased bill and they pass it on to the tenant, don't they? And they recover their funds for that. In fact, our own system, we have a 100% user pay system, don't we? So we look to recover the costs of the community housing. So that's our model.
Which we pay full rates on, don't we, on each individual unit?
Yes, yeah.
Correct. Yeah.
But yes.
Tenants can get rental assistance as well.
So I didn't want to confuse the issue with that side of things, but I thought it was, like it has been raised that there is if they don't put it up, then they can't recover their costs, and they're asking for support from council. But they have a problem that, as they've explained, the valid reluctance to put the costs up.
But we're actually not able to in our current contract. Not an option.
Yeah. Voting or what?
Through you, your worship. So if I heard correctly, you said they're paying $100 a week?
Yes.
In these units, and the total cost here is $5,924.72 for the 4 units.
Through you, your worship, that would be the amount of the remission should you. The total cost, 4 units next year would be in the vicinity of 12,000. With that reduction, so it's 7%. So just about 18.
3,000 each.
Might be a bit harsh, but it still seems like pretty cheap accommodation to me if it's going to cost $180 or $200 a week.
That's 44,000.
Councillor McTernan.
Your worship, can I ask another question of either staff or Mark? Do we have any other similar systems in the Cooper district? Does West Otago Health operate a similar model?
Well, I do, because they're looking at doing it, and not at the moment. But you have both of views. I guess the difference is like they're owned by a big corporation. Looking at making a profit.
West Otago Health, though, they
haven't yet.
Currently not.
Yeah, so there is a precedent setting potentially.
Exactly. No.
Yeah. No.
So we're looking for a resolution. Councillor Brown.
Recommendation.
To move the recommendation that receives the application for rates remission, and 2, that the council does not grant rates remission.
Do we have a seconder for that?
I'll second that.
We'll go to the vote. All those in favour?
Aye.
Raise your hands, yeah, please, so Julie can see.
It's a very, and those against is Councillor Cotton. For myself, I don't know entirely where Councillor Cotton's coming from, but for myself, that the organisation has policies, and I'm afraid it doesn't fit the policy, and I have to stick to the policy, even though it is my own community. So that was carried. Moving on, so is there ways we can look at helping the organisation further afield if we've got other, like West Otago Health, will look at it the same. I don't know what a WAC is doing down there, but it's obviously a growing need for our district moving forward. So in a way that we could work with the organisations to try and find a way to manoeuvre that loophole to fit the criteria.
We can certainly put some thought into that.
It'd be lovely. It looks like you've had a bit of work in front of you, and a very awkward one for you too, Sharon, but thank you very much for helping Cubica Health out with their application.
Should be able to keep.
Yeah, sure there's a way.
You must
Thank you very much, Matt.
Yep, thank you very much for the opportunity, councillors, and Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for your help.
Thank you, Sharon. Right, item number 2
Must be a way that.
on our agendas.
Yeah.
Welcome, Sonia.
Welcome, Your Worship and councillors.
Brucey.
Welcome, Your Worship and fellow councillors. Through you, the Worship, I would like to take this item as read and answer any questions, please.
Questions for Sonia, councillors? Councillors. Well, I'll get the conversation going. Once again, it's another large Tuapeka organisation. They've applied for the full amount, but the maximum under the policy is $1,500, and once again, the policy is the policy. That's why the organisation has policies to help guide us with their decisions. So
We don't have a policy. We don't have a policy at all to reimburse for building.
It's true. Through you, Your Worship, when the policy was redone as part of the long-term plan, it was changed to be just halls and rentals. And this type of application has come as a separate paper in the past. And to note, these people have paid quite a lot.
14,000.
Already. They're asking for the 6. Here we go.
thanks for invigorating the conversation, Sharon.
I'm ready for it.
3-year worship. So the person I'd actually direct the question would be at is actually is in our building regulation department. So I see that this group has spent 14,000. I've used outside consultants to prepare their building consent, and then they've been charged an extra, I think it was 22.5 hours as well, when we're reading, and hence they've come up to having a bill of over $4,000. So it's a shame that it probably hasn't been communicated, earlier that you guys, because then you want to have a chance to come for the group to come to the annual plan for a grant, because coming through this door, this is going against our policy.
Yes, I'm well aware of that.
Yeah.
The problem was that the bill came after that process. And we're not asking for money, we're asking to waive that part of the consent process. So, and it is a hall.
It's a hall.
Whole house is a hall.
Just for clarification though, through you, Your Worship, when you say they're not asking for money, it's a waiver of fees. If there's additional processing time, that's a cost, right? And so it is a cost to council. And in fact, if we've done it to outside consultants, it's a direct cost because there's a bill that we would in that sense. So I'm always a bit careful when people say that actually there is a cost to council of waiving. So.
Fine.
Just to go back in time, but when we waived the fees for the Lawrence Chinese camp, they made an application to the annual plan, and did we give that out of investment service? It's the only similar one I can think.
Through you, Your Worship,
Yes,
but they had another application as well.
Yeah.
They got it approved for $10,000, and then the fee came in at something like 13 or 14, and they came back.
Yeah.
And got the additional.
Yeah, but it wasn't a reimbursement, it was out of a different.
Correct.
Yeah. Which is important again on, like before, whether it's setting precedents or not.
Through your worship, the decision at the LTP were a bit precedent setting anyway, because it then said, not the LTP, the annual plan, sorry, because then we said, actually, we better feed this whole subject into the LTP, the long-term plan, around how we're going to deal with these sorts of questions from community groups on building consent waivers. And so that's sort of been thrown into the community funding review question, but we did, your decisions were made quite rightly at the annual plan, and that was the case, acknowledging there's a problem that you want to consider at the long-term plan.
So,
Councillor McDermott.
can I ask one more question there. So does this group have no money yet?
On this project, very close to it currently. There's 3 other projects, but on this project, there's not a lot of the coffers right now, and the reason for that being is we were right on budget. That included this cost until we got a $7,000 engineer's bill that came out of the blue. And of course, as it says in your agenda, that they're at a stalemate now. We can't go any further until the bill's paid, because consent will not be issued. So currently the group is seeking expressions of interest from builders. Get on to that part of it. There's a lot of fundraising to happen there, probably to the tune of $1.5 to $2 million, because of all the earthquake strength and everything that needs to happen, which is another story, but that's not what this is about.
Councillor Smith.
So there's 3 months difference between the first bill and the third one, and now there's 22 hours, 3 days for somebody. Was there an issue that the building inspectors never picked up on the first, or the planners on the first one, or why? Because if you're building something 3 months later, you've got to change things. It seems a bit weird.
Well, there's been no building work done. So we've had resource consent for probably 4 years now. So we're going through the building consent process, which has cost us around 110, it says 103 there, but it's a little bit more than that, right? 110,000 to get to that point. And that's been money that we have raised through donation or other grants. This group hasn't been to council before for this project. So since it was money out of the blue, what happened, the process was the Secretary and Treasurer thought it met the fees and charges criteria and put an application in there only to find out, that it didn't quite meet that criteria because of the policy change, and now this is why it's sitting here in front of council today, just simply for that reason. And I am aware of the policy, and I knew that was the case. But we are here.
So you haven't actually started the project? You've got the planning you haven't fulfilled the actual built project yet.
We can't, we've got building consent, we've got to pay this bill.
You spent $19,000
Yeah. So this
for
council,
$103,000
so this
for an
council,
existing building.
Yep.
Oh.
We've spent 14 on the building consent process, and then there's this on top.
You haven't, you've spent, because there's an invoice there.
Yeah, it was an
4.5,
expense, yes, so fair point.
Councillor Frost.
Oh, sorry, just for clarification, the project is not costing $103,000, is it? You've got
No,
Origin.
the project's.
It's a big project.
Yeah.
So you're not comparing the building consent as a percentage of that cost. That's the consultant costs for the design and things like that.
It's 103.
Yeah.
Yeah, engineers, and we got a quote to do that before we started the process. And to be fair, the quote did say for the building consent for council would be around $16,000 to $18,000. So it wasn't unexpected, but once the first bill came in, we thought happy days, we've had a wee win, and then lots of happy days a few months later.
So through you, Mr. Chairman, you mentioned before it's like $1.5 million project.
Oh yeah,
So
That's implications, yes.
Yeah, okay, so where's that money coming from?
We've got a couple of wee things up our sleeves, but obviously the community trust, who are well aware of the project, Lotteries, Environment and Heritage, who are well aware of the project. So I as chair of the group, have been talking to these major funders for probably on 4 years, ever since we got resource consent to go for the project. So they're well aware of it, and as you know, I wear a few hats. And every time I go to CTR in particular, asking for money, they keep saying to me, Roger, you do realise you've got this courthouse coming up. So I do realise that. So they're well aware of our situation, and building, because we've had a QS do their part of it. So we're building in the CTR, etc., are building in their budgets, what their share might be going forward. And if you talk about LEH, Lotteries, Environment and Heritage, the maximum they will give is $400,000 to a group, and the Irish Chinese camp was successful in getting that amount. To give you an idea of the pressure on funding there, they have, every round they have about a $14 million application from the community, and they only give out 7. So for another wee project, the Lions Heritage Trust received $42,000 to finish a cottage, which is now the New Zealand Century Farm Station Award. So have been successful in the past, have that relationship, which is good, but that does not help us in the meantime.
So in the meantime,
Sorry, Mr. Chairman, I was going to say, just again, an answer. The first bill you get when you submit an application is a deposit bill.
Correct, yeah.
Which everybody hopes will be all you need, but where there's additional processing needed, that's when you get the second bill. So it's never a suggestion that it's necessarily the final bill when you submit it and put a deposit in.
It didn't really get the detail of the $1.5 million project. Now I understand.
So is the first account being paid?
Yep.
Yeah, it has.
Sure is.
It wouldn't be processed.
No, well, it just says in here, the council cannot proceed with your building consent till deposit fees been received, and it doesn't say that it's been paid on this copy in here, so that's why that's.
It's been paid, Your Worship, and that's what started the process. And I suspect that what's kicked this extra bit in was the engineer part of it, because if you know the old courthouse lines, they've got to drill down through bricks and put steel rods in to reinforce it. So I think there had to be clarity around that and how that's going to work, which I understand.
So you can continue your project currently with an unpaid building consent bill?
What we can do is get expressions of interest from interested building companies, which we've identified about 6 throughout Otago, and they'll be sent to spec, and then they'll come back and say, yes, this is something for us, or no, it's not. And then once they say it's something for them, then the hard work begins. You've got to raise X amount of money, $1.5 to $2 million. So we're very fortunate. We have some benefactors in Auckland that are very, very generous, but they have their own trust with this criteria that's got to meet.
Right, any further questions?
Your Worship, if that, if the council decided not to approve, they may decide to approve, but if they decide not to approve, I should have the ability to allow the consent to be issued. We could make arrangements with the trust to, find a way to pay something over time to achieve what's necessary. So we don't have to, it's not a dead stop if that was the case. I just need to know what the decision of council is in terms of that, so I know whether I have to do something or I don't.
Yeah. So you're saying, Steve, that you'd let them continue, you'd issue their building consent, and they could apply for this extra on top of their 1.5 that they're looking for anyway?
I mean, council would carry a risk, well, I would carry a risk in the sense of unpaid debt, but I mean, these are community groups and things, they can always apply for grants or whatever, and who knows, the funding thing might change with the LTP. So I'm just saying, I can say to you that the project doesn't have to stop if you said no to the application.
just for a wee bit of clarity, if that scenario was to happen, and the bill falls with the trustees individually. So the trustees are legally liable individually for all outstanding bills.
Councillor Frost.
Through you, your worship, have you considered going back to Origin Consultants and asking for a $4,664 reduction in their account, because they seem to have done very well out of this project?
Well, they actually have let us do part payments in recent times too, but their quote was about 30 grand of that 100 and whatever.
If you take 14,524 off 103, it's about 85,000.
That's right.
Pretty good money for sitting in an office and doing.
No, they didn't get all that, councillor.
Councillor McAtamney.
Thank you, Your Worship. I think the CEO has proposed a very novel option there, and that will be on the condition that the trustees can always decline that.
100%. Yeah, as I said, they're legally liable.
Yes, but you can only for $4,000 between them. And you could decline that offer.
Not a chance.
Well, we can't arrive at that point until someone actually makes a
We're in discussion.
So then, yeah.
Would someone like to make a recommendation?
We're into discussion now.
No, no recommendation yet.
No, you were in question time before. I'm waiting till you say we're into discussion, then
Oh, I'll get into it.
Right. Considering the way I voted on the last one and not wanting to be branded a hypocrite, despite this approval being outside the policy, it's outside the policy, so same deal. It's not in the policy, I won't be supporting it. And maybe we need to review some of these policies if there's things popping up all the time. So that's where I'll be.
Further discussion, councillor Kaplan.
Yeah, so I'm going to take a different approach to how I'd support this. Is
Looking forward to it.
it's an extra 22 and a half hours charged at $2.50 an hour. Now, above our original apply for the building consent. We know that this group is going to end up coming back around this table to apply for some form of funding, probably from our investment funds in the future. Instead of leaving the trustees on the hop, I would actually, we're just delaying it. We were going to end up, and there's obviously a great group of volunteers that are involved in this, in the community. So I'm actually, even though it sits outside the policy, it's coming through the wrong angle, but it's coming through that. To me, it's a late backdoor annual plan. I would actually happily approve the 4644, but I'll actually take it from our investment. That's why I was going to put a motion forward. That's where I'm at. It's going to come back to us.
The suggestion was that was be funded, if you're going to do it, was the fee reimbursement, which is an account that restarts again this financial year. So we seem to blow it every year because we are reimbursing, like house and land packages take a big chunk every time. But it's a new beginning on the fund. It always gets restarted. So technically it won't be outside yet, but it historically runs over. But if you were funding it, you'd fund it. The suggestion would be funding it from the account that exists to fund it, which is the fee reimbursement.
How much is that fund per annum, Steve?
Through your worship, it's about 19,000.
And it generally gets eaten up by Kai House and land packages. Does it go over?
Yes, it goes over. Yes, it does, because if you fit, because the hall highs as well, you can get up to 1,500. Right? You guys reduced that last time from 2,000, but now some of them are 1,500. They never used to be. So, and if you apply for a reimbursement for hall hire and it's $1,500, it's within policy, so we have to go tack. So even if you keep going, you could go well over that.
So then are we going to sort out in the long-term plan where these, because we're creating we're going over budget out of the 15,000, aren't we? Every year.
It is scheduled in the long-term plan to look at that question.
It's kind of a bottomless pit, that one, isn't it?
Yeah, Councillor McCarthy, sorry.
That's
Could we look outside the square and have a bit of both options? Because if you look at the policy, you have a maximum of 1,500. So maybe an option of $1,500 with the trust paying the remaining 3,164 and time payments with Steve allowing it to go ahead might be an option of a bit of everything.
Through you, your worship. So I'm going to take a different tack, I'm sorry. So as Steve said, they were quoted roughly $16,000 to $18,000 for a building consent. So $18,000, it comes to about 19,000. Building consent bill, they were quoted 30,000 from Origin Consultants, and they've been charged about 85,000. Well, yeah, look, I'm sorry, but I'm going to be a bit harsh today, Roger. So I'm with Bruce on this one. I'll be opposing this. When this was started, they had quotes, 18,000 for building consent, the Origin Consultants report. You know, these are the risks you take when you start these projects. So, I'll be voting against any approval.
Miss Councillor Kennedy.
I'm against the other way, I'm sorry. I think we're due to start off a new season for our thing, and I think we should pay it. There's very few heritage buildings that we actually have in our communities, and this is a group that's very proactive on keeping some of the buildings still alive. The reinforcement side of it, I thought the government changed the rules on that. We've still got to hold to that at this stage.
And the other issue we got, it's a category 1 building.
Yeah.
So there's things
A heritage building, yeah.
And just to alleviate Councillor Frost, the 30,000 was from Origin, but the rest is engineering and QSs and fire plans and all that sort of thing. So they are over and above Origin's consultancy fees.
One thing to say, I'd like to get moving on this because we're scribbling over 4,500 and we've got a $20 million item coming up next. So,
Put your recommendation forward, Mr. McKinley.
so Mr. Councillor Graham has, yeah.
Sorry?
Councillor Graham's put it forward. Has he got a seconder?
No, yes.
I didn't make a recommendation.
Mate, it's just discussion.
I'm quite prepared to.
Have they exhausted all the discussion?
I think so.
I'm prepared to recommend recommendation 1 that we receive a report and recommendation 3 that the council does not approve the request.
Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Councillor Frost. Right, take it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand.
There's a whole lot of one.
Have you got that? Yep, thank you. Obviously, all those against?
Bit of consistency, that's all we ask.
Everybody else. Everybody else. Right.
Need another resolution.
We need another resolution.
Okay, I'll move that recommendation 1, we approve the report, and recommendation 2 that we approve. Got it right, Aaron? It's 2 you approve? Yeah. 2 that we approve the reimbursement of the remaining consent fees.
From the,
Fees reimbursement scheme.
no, what was that other one that you were talking about though with the Leo's Land package?
No,
That's
that's
it.
that's
That's
a theory.
That's that one.
Investment capital.
So you're talking the fees and reimbursement scheme, so
Okay, yeah, that's.
as per the agenda. Seconded by councillor Kennedy. Right, take that one to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hands.
Doesn't include councillor Cathal at this time.
Right. McTerminy, Kennedy.
Good enough.
Those against?
I already can figure out what councillor Cathal is actually.
Yeah, carried.
I don't agree we should take that out of account.
Done. Good.
Against the policy.
Thank
You
you.
just voted on that.
That's right.
Thank you, Sonia. Right. We are on to item number 3. Welcome, Robert.
May have got sick of waiting. He's just gone. So while we do just hopped off in the last minute.
I'll be investment
Look
advisor.
at you.
Way down the track, mate. Far too early. Must be a big haul, Roger.
Look at the maps.
I'll do it for half the price. Then just burn it. Burn it.
Before you get some rum. Good afternoon, everybody. So I'll just quickly introduce or reintroduce you again to Paul Duffy. He's the Director of DS Project Solutions, and as you're all aware, Paul has been working, and his team have been working very closely with me through this whole journey on decisions for Mount Kui. And online we have Matt Thomas, and Matt also works with DS Project Solutions, and he's actually got on standby if we need. So this handout that I've just given you all, the first page is a summary page where it's got a table where it shows the inflation or percentage and whether it's interest only or principal and interest with some calculations. So if there's questions as we go through this report that you were wanting answered in regards to the financial tables, I'll ask Matt to be able to put those figures in and we can come up with some different scenario options for you. So I thought probably there's an awful lot of information to digest and go through, and hopefully you have all read the report and the appendices associated with it. To help you through the journey though, I thought we'd talk through high level areas of interest on each page, and then I'll just quickly explain this handout to you as well, because you don't really need to focus on that right this minute. So as explained, the first page is like the summary of interest rate, and if it's interest only or principal and interest. It also has a couple of, sorry, this page here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's got the example of the cumulative balance over 25 years. Or in blue is if council approves to proceed with construction of the new landfill cell, and in green is the cost associated if council decides to transfer material out of district. The bar, or the little graph underneath, is the gas generation over time with capturing gas, and that would only occur if we proceeded in its entirety with closing or capping the current cell and construction of the new cell. Then the next page is, I just want to give you an understanding so you know what we're doing. There's one page here on the transfer station based costs. And the reverse of that page is the transfer station costs over the 25 years. And the last page is the same information for if council chooses to proceed with the construction of the new landfill. It's the base cost, and on the reverse is the 25 years. Right. So I'm not going to go through reading the report. As I say, there was a lot for me to digest and read through, but I just want to give you some interesting information to consider before I take it that the report has been read and for questions. So currently, Green Island and Dunedin, they are actually having to transport their material out of Dunedin, even though they have wanting to build their whole new landfill site. They've come up with some issues and they're transferring product out of district. They're transporting it to Timaru. The prices that we've given on the assumptions of transferring product out of district, we're aligning to costs from AB Lime as an assumption. Under the recommendations, if council did approve to proceed with the procurement and design and construction of Mount Kui, our intention would be that after today, so probably on Monday, we would put a notice onto GETS advising nationwide that we'll be coming out with a tender submission. That's to prepare contractors nationally that this proposal is coming, so they can plan for that. Our intention is to go out to tender, again if council approves this, by the beginning of September, allowing a 2-month tender submission period. And we're mindful that the construction of the cell needs to be completed realistically by August 2027. Because currently, if you recall, the risk that we'd been advised, 18 months, 2 years ago, potentially was at that stage we thought that the cell was going to, our current cell would have been filled before now, and we would have had to have transported out of district. We've proven that information wasn't correct at the time, but we are mindful that our projections at the current tonnage rate of waste coming into Mount Kui, its trajectory is around end of July, August next year, that cell would be filled. If it's proven that the construction takes slightly longer than August next year to complete, we have the ability to effectively overfill the current cell, keep it at Mount Kui, and then as the new cell is constructed, we can move that into the new cell. So that's the first bit of information that I wanted to give to you for pages 28 and 29. If we go to pages 32 and 33, you'll see there's quite a difference in costs from what WSP had initially provided and those initial assumptions with the prior head of department at the time presenting information to you. And these projects have been working with an organisation called SLR, and they've come up with different assumptions. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is for option 1, which is a transfer station. These projects have worked very closely, and they're actually proposing a much more financially viable option for if we had to construct a transfer-only site rather than what WSP had initially proposed in the appendices that you've received. And then if you look at option 2, the capital cost comparisons, this is to cap the current cell once it's full, as we're in option 1, apologies, and for the construction of the new cell. And again, there's quite a lot of variances there from what WSP had projected numerous years ago, even before I think I'd started at this council, versus what SLR are proposing. And again, it's different methodologies and different options. If we go through to page 34 and 35, and this is quite critical information for you to get your head around. On this table that's presented to you, Matt in particular has done a huge amount of work in the background, showing that you've got a column, the year. The next column is gas collection revenue. This is the opportunity that we have if we construct the second cell and over time we do the gas collection, not only from the closed cell, but also the new future cell. The next column is the ETS levy liability. That's the cost that we pay for emission trade schemes of, first of all, having the waste deposited. The variance is showing you that as the gas collection increases, our revenue opportunity increases, so that by the 25 years, we could potentially bring in $18.7 million of revenue versus it would have been a cost over 25 years without gas collection of $28 million for ETS levies. Those levies have been calculated on 10,000 tonne per annum of waste, and we've allowed a 4% inflation rate year on year. One of the beauties that Matt actually quickly phoned us, I think it was at 1 o'clock this afternoon, because I'd asked the team, and I'll talk this through with you going forward. In our initial assumptions, we had allowed 100% of the capital expense to be utilised next year. We know that's not going to happen. We know that realistically we're probably going to have to draw down 60% for the loan funding for the capital investment if council chooses to approve that, which means that the interest and principal repayments will be less than, and I'll talk you through that shortly. But it also means that we're actually stretching out and deferring those costs, so that with these new calculations, we're estimating we could potentially get up to $24 million of revenue for gas collection if council approves to proceed with the second cell construction. I'll just give you a minute to digest that, because that's a lot of information and it's important. Sorry, thank you. And the other area to consider as well, that even after the 25 years, if the council then in the future 22 years decide not to try and get an increased resource consent and chooses to close that, you'll still get gas collection over time. It will reduce, but that is still potential revenue. If we go to page 36, 37. On these assumptions, this is an example of the assumptions we're showing you, that if we proceeded with the transfer station and transporting material out of district, we've calculated that we're estimating a year-on-year cost of $1 million over and above as a deficit from the revenue received to operate that. Again, that's really critical information.
Donna, is that assuming there's still 10,000 tonnes?
Yes.
Okay, and what are we doing now?
8.4.
8.2, isn't it?
Between 8.2 and 8.4.
So it's less than that.
It is, but 10,000 is a nice round figure just to
Can we
give
just-
some figures.
It's less than that.
Pardon?
can I just understand a bit more about this gas collection?
Sure.
How's this making revenue? Is this offsetting your ETS obligations?
Yes, so the ETS levy is paid irrespective of whether you have gas collection or not. But the gas that you collect and dispose of, by way of means, you can burn it off, or you can put it into engines that create electricity or other matters. The gas that you register as being burnt off is offset against your levy. So over time, as you get more and more gas and the same amount of waste going in, you get to the point where you're almost cost neutral on gas collection revenue being offset against the levy.
So you measure your gas that you'd flare off?
Yeah.
So in the start, you're flaring off less value worth than the tonnage worth of ETS going over the weighbridge, is that right?
Yeah. Over time, your volume of material grows because you bring more and more in, and it decomposes more. So in the first few years, you get a small volume of material and a small volume of gas. But as that goes up, as that moves forward over time, the volume of gas and the decomposition increases, as does the volume of material, the reservoir of material which is creating gas. The other piece on this equation is also your current cell. Cell 1, which needs capping, is effectively now, you've paid all the levy on cell 1 over the years for something that doesn't, and you've collected none of the revenue because you've never flared off any gas or created it. So that currently is effectively, if depending on how the makeup of how that's been filled, is a potential reservoir of revenue, because we could put some flares, some gas.
You can retrofit that.
And then you'll flare it. So that's not included in these numbers because we don't have enough data on how you build the landfill, but definitely worth investigating.
So just to flow on from that, one of the recommendations is to enable the team to continue a business case with the assumptions of the gas collection from our current cell, which would have to do a whole lot of investigation to work out the depths of cover versus waste from the base, and also the calculations that will give us confidence of the calculations for the future cell.
Do they drill and measure? Could you drill and measure? Could they drill into that core and measure gas, couldn't they?
Well, that's what we do. We drill you drill a well in the ground effectively that collects the gas, and as it comes off, you have a measuring device on it and you flare it off. That's how, and you must measure it in order to get the credits.
Oh, this changes the whole.
Can I finish going through
Well,
this? And then I'm more than happy to answer the questions, but I might be answering your questions perhaps.
Possibly not. You mentioned earlier, Donna, just a quick one, at the end of 25 years, I was always taught that this capacity out there was, we could fit 25 more years of waste in it, 10,000 tonne a year, and that was it. The cycle's later. So we're done at 25 years.
27 years at 82 is what's.
Well, we're equivalent of it.
I think going forward, I mean, we've already proven that the first assumptions that we were given a couple of years ago weren't accurate and correct.
Yeah.
The other thing to consider is, what if we're not receiving the volume that we currently get today? And if we don't, we would have the opportunity potentially to request our resource consent to be extended for further years to not only then fill at capacity, but to also get that additional revenue. So it's just something to think about.
But there's no possibility of bigger expansion.
Not that I'm aware of at this point in time. So then if we go to page 43, because I just want to answer, I'm trying to preempt questions so that you're getting some understanding. where I've got under item 9, financial impact. So currently in our LTP, there's only budgets of 14.7 million. I've broken it down by each capital expenditure item. And we've also got so you're right there, Dane?
43.
Page 43. I've also got the SLR current estimations of costs associated with this work to cap the existing cell, the building, the transfer station, the resource recovery centre, we've left that as 0 at the moment because that was it's in our LTP allowance under the building, the transfer station. And the big one is the second cell construction. Now, the first thing I asked is, why is there such a huge variance there? Because it was kind of frightening. And the reality is, we've had information from SLR, and in a nutshell, without going into a lot of detail right this second, originally, WSP, first of all, the budgets that were set in the long-term plan were actually set even before I started at this council. And year on year, they've only been increased by our Beal Index incremental increases. So we're talking at least 3 to 4 years ago, possibly longer, that those were the figures, less the inflation set.
3 years.
On top of which, originally, when those values had been estimated with WSP, they'd only done lump sum allowances. SLR are actually doing a full measure quantity costings with using construction rates as a benchmark as of today's rates. There were no escalation allowances with WSP as well. So I wanted to give you full visibility that if you chose to proceed with this right this minute, it is looking at an $8 million deficit as from budgets in the LTP. However, and this is why I've given you this information here, Matt's done the assumptions at 4.2% interest only. I've confirmed with our finance team that we actually currently, our interest rate is 4.1%. And when we look at the principal and interest for that additional money, that is included in these assumptions where you can see we will still make a surplus if we did with the landfill sale. So that's all in here for you to see, and you'll see that adding that additional interest payment because of the gas revenue, because of the gas revenue. So I think, let me just triple check before so with that information, I know it's a lot to digest. I'll take the report as read.
Yeah.
And any questions?
Okay. So, questions?
Where do we start?
Yeah, where do we start? Yeah, no, so I've got a question. So yeah, good report. So I just want to clarify a couple of things. When we're doing these comparisons on that spreadsheet on page 36.
Yep.
So those figures there are pretty well sorted, aren't they? 36.
Yes.
So I just want to run through and just check a couple of figures. So collection disposal, that's our Wellington truck, truck running around, isn't it?
Yep.
So that's our contract price currently that we've got is costing us $443 per annum.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Cool. And then the depreciation, plant and equipment, are we claiming that is our depreciation on L2 trucks?
Yes.
That's our depreciation on L2 trucks. Okay. Now the 600,000 liability for our carbon credits, yeah?
Yes.
But is that calculation on what's in the report is 8,200 tonnes?
Everything's based on 10,000.
But then the report's telling us
Because it's
that we're
future
getting
years.
8.2. Is that right?
You
Your report's using a calculation of 8.2.
10.
10. So
We've
10.
done that because it's for future years.
Smooth.
Yeah.
Councillor Cotton.
So you're talking $60 a carbon credit at the moment.
Based on $60 a credit.
Average.
Average.
And if-
Traditionally, you bought far better than that.
And remember when we did our workshop, we sort of explained that and showed that to you, and then in actual fact, we're on quite a lot of credit for this current year. Remember we did.
Because it's like $60 a credit and they're currently like $50.
55, 23.
You're worth nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, okay. That's okay. And then, so I just want to check. So the Mount Kerry operation figure here of $1,031,000,
Mhm.
that's the contract price for them to currently operate our tip.
Correct.
Okay, so then on the other side, you've got 3,859,000. So that's obviously taking in them running a transfer station, a contractor running a transfer station, and the cartage to Browns and the disposal cost per tonne.
Mhm. And I just want to add to that, if we continue with keeping the landfill open, it's our asset and we can control to the best of our ability the costs. If we open ourselves to transporting out of district, we have no control. We cannot control the costs that we
I
get on
understand that.
charge.
So next question, the waste minimisation levy of 550,000 on our landfill site.
Yes,
What's that for? How's that working? How's that calculated?
we get charged a levy for the amount of volume that we get put into our landfill.
So it's $55 a tonne.
From memory, I'd have to double check that, but we have done these calculations on the information that we have today.
So that goes, so $55 a tonne and $60 a tonne carbon credits would be $105 a tonne. And Browns is $205 a tonne, including those fees. Is that correct? Would that be fair to say?
I think that's correct. I'm not quite sure of the exact number.
Who gets the waste minimisation money, levy money?
Currently so the money
Who
goes to
gets that
government.
550,000?
Government.
The government gets that?
Yeah.
And then the carbon credit company gets the 600. The ETS.
The ETS levy, government gets that as well. Both of them are punitive in order to encourage you to produce less waste. And if you are reducing, try and reduce the amount of gas that you're giving off. It's effectively penalised.
So there's $105,000 worth of external disappeared cost per tonne waste in our country. Is that right? Yeah.
Currently, though, we also receive funding from the waste levy. We receive some of that money back.
From the waste minimisation levy?
So we pay for the material that is deposited into the landfill.
Yeah.
And then from that, we receive some external funding.
We get half the money back.
Yeah.
Does that go into our, is that on the top of that page?
No.
Goes towards waste minimisation. It can only be used for approved waste minimisation activities in your WMMP. The other half of that goes to a contestable fund that you can apply for if you've got usually regional waste minimisation initiatives. So it's supposed to go back into waste minimisation, but paid for by people producing waste.
Yes, you can't use the funds that we receive for the operational costs. We've got a separate activity for that. However, we can use that. It covers 2 team members' salaries as well as other costs at no cost to council.
So then probably my last one would be is in your calculation is got here on there.
Let's look at the question and while you're working that out, councillor.
Well, no, it's interest only. I'm just wondering why we planning to build in theory, we're going to borrow $23 million, build a landfill, which can become an income generating an asset. You've got interest only for 25 years. If I remember rightly in the reports, it read $8,200 tonne would last for 27 years. But at the end of 25 years, if we pay interest only on it, on the report, you've still got to pay the $23 million at the end of
So I'm really glad you picked that up because
Yeah.
we were discussing that during the break. And so what I've done is I sat down with Greg and we've done the calculations. So this was just to give you visibility and assumptions, right? Remembering with any sort of loan, the first few years is probably about 90 to 95, even 97% interest, and the balance is principal, right? So we put those in at 4.2%.
But we just roll our debt over at 4.2.
However, with the calculations at 4.1%, we've estimated we'd have to actually draw down 60% of that capital investment initially from the additional $8 million. That's 4.8 million at interest and principal, 306,000 per annum. The next year, yes, we would. The
We don't
next
actually
year,
have the 8 million. We're going to still borrow the 8 million.
correct.
And you say the initial 8 million.
The additional 8 million of borrowing.
But you don't, yeah,
So,
additional 8.
yes, and these
Total
figures
borrowing.
in here cover that extra. We've already rate funded for the original budgets. That's already in the rates. So I'm talking about the extra money if you chose to proceed with this. In the second year, because remember, if we do capital works this year, we don't actually start to loan fund till the following year. So the second year, the remaining 3.2 million, inclusive of the 4.8, so the 8 million, you'll be looking at 511,000 interest and principal. So these figures in here cover that.
The short and tall of it is option 2 is a higher initial cost, but it's far better long-term financially.
Correct, yes.
No.
And option 1 is cheaper to build, but dramatically more expensive over a 25-year period,
Correct.
with a significant higher ratepayer exposure and loss of local control. So,
If you get paid for gas.
yeah.
And it's a if. Why don't we finish some of the jobs we're doing?
No, there's an opportunity. There is an opportunity more.
Councillor McTabbert.
Yeah, but on that interest and principal, council always 25-year loans has to repay that principal over the 25 years. So that is an additional $16 million
Yes.
that has to be repaid.
So the original, in the LTP currently,
Yeah, but
let me just go to that page.
it shifts those margins around substantially. And the LTP had 14.
Yeah, so in the LTP, we've currently got in the budget's 14.7 million.
Yes.
Yeah, and Sharon and the team have already done the rates impacts associated with
Yeah.
that.
But we get the opportunity with the transfer station to borrow $16 million less.
You do, but it's going to cost us $1 million operationally every year.
No, but you haven't put the principal in there. Once you add that principal in, the interest and principal per year is 1.47 million.
Yes.
It's 22 million, and it's 403,000.
I've only factored in for the additional 8 million.
No.
And these,
It's
no,
an
no,
additional 8.
But it's a potential saving.
sorry.
So it's $1 million difference per year over $25 over 25 years.
So in the figures that you've got here as assumptions, it had only originally put in the interest only at 4.2%. What I went and spoke with Greg about,
Yeah.
because the 14.7,
We have the option with the transfer station.
Yeah.
We don't have to spend 14 million. We can spend $6 million on capping the sale and a new.
for capital, yes, but you do have a deficit of $1 million year on year.
Correct, but that's offset by the interest and principal, by the interest and principal on that other loan.
Yes, but over.
So you come out at about zero.
But the interest and principal stays the same for 25 years. Because, right? But the costs of running the landfill at a $1.1 million loss per year, sorry, the transfer station at 1.1 million, with its interest and principal paid on. Bearing in mind, that's interest only at the moment as well. So it's got the interest and principal on 6.
Yeah, what I'm saying.
But the year-on-year losses need to be inflated by by 4% per annum cumulative over 25 years, to give you the full picture of what it costs to run a transport station.
And their operational costs.
The big concern for me though too is running into, we're doing a new LTP. We know we've got quite a high debt situation, even when water leaves next year. So when you lock in that extra $16 million over 25 years, it's $16 million that cannot be borrowed for something else for what is essentially nearly a cost neutral.
Yep, that's correct. You'd be deciding to invest in this asset and the potential revenue and keeping it within our district and ensuring that we can control within our ability the costs going forward versus a lower capital investment up front with no longer having that asset owned by council, no longer having the ability to have our waste, no longer having the ability to capture gas and create up to $24 million revenue for our council.
Offset by the additional.
Yep, correct.
But, yeah, okay, I'd probably into the way off the question.
That's all right.
I wanted to discuss.
Any more questions for?
I don't know. So, if I cut off here a little bit, how many wheelie bins do we do? How many? 6,600, was it 6,600 or something?
Six.
About that, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank
today.
you. Yep, I'm trying to remember.
Councillor Cotton.
Thank you, Your Worship. Donna, what impact does the ETS price have on this? So if the average price is $50 compared to $80, what's the difference?
Well, what I can tell you is that if the ETS levy goes up by an amount, it'll go up by the same amount at the place that you tip. So it's unknown, and it follows the various graphs that we showed you last time, where we also showed that it's bought amazingly well, always at the right side of the line. So ETS levy, it's like saying, well, don't do next. No idea.
And what I can say is that it's highly probable that if we transport out of district, that whoever we transport to, it's highly unlikely they would give us that at cost. They'll put margin on that, right?
My understanding from my personal advisors is that carbon's going to reach $120 a tonne. So, when I was concerned within the next 5 years.
Give them with the money.
Where are you selling it?
Where's it going to go?
There's a million units of carbon sold every day. Every day.
How's the price?
Yeah, but how's the price going?
It's gone up $5 in the last month.
Can I ask this one more question on that? The way it's been modelled though, hasn't it, is that you are assuming that the carbon price rises and therefore the income at the end of the gas also rises at the same rate through that period. That's in the assumption.
Yeah, it's 4%.
Yeah.
You factored in that ETS rise.
Yeah, it's smooth.
So as far as this is concerned, it's neutral.
That's probably fair.
Righto.
Two questions.
Two questions, Steve.
Yeah, has SLR modelled the tonnage where both come out the same? Both transfer options and the building Mount Curry come out the same, just in terms of modelling sense?
If we drop to 4,000 tonnes a year.
Which is the point? Is it 6,000, 5,000, 4,000 that the models balance and they're the same? Just so that they would have done scenario modelling, so there'd be something there. Did you identify where that? I wouldn't call it a break-even point. It's just the point at which they're basically about the same in terms of the options, right?
No, I don't have that.
Yeah, but have you done it?
We did do some of it. I can't remember exactly where that was. But what I would also say is, if obviously in the report we do touch on the fact that what came out of our thinking was actually the scenario of getting to 10,000 tonnes per year as a budgeting number, maybe we looked at what we should try and reduce that number to in order to increase the lifespan of the landfill as a resource for as long as possible. In other words, that exact thing you're talking about is if we can take only 4,000 tonnes of material into the landfill and break even due to the operational efficiencies and the gas collection, that landfill would be a resource for you in the region for 50 years, 60 years.
Yeah, I wasn't looking at it like that. I was just simply looking at it. You've done it from a assessment analysis point of view, and I just was. I think that's important. WSP have done that figures. All with that was in that sense. I think that's important because there is some questions.
There's actually an opportunity to make money out of this, isn't there?
There is.
To follow up faster.
There is some questions and concern from councillors about the fact that we're doing 8,000 and you're now analysing the 10. I understand that modelling terms we can do that side of it, but there is also a reality to things that people would like to see. At what point then do they both equate? And it gives us an idea in terms of how we're looking at it. The second question is, it goes to the part of the high capital cost of the option to build the new cell. And I'd ask that we had originally talked about investigating public-private partnerships and things. And I would certainly be interested in whether SLR had done any work on that. And if not, like as to say that was eliminated as an option for some reason. And if it wasn't, I'd be interested in ensuring that any actions that were taken if council was going down a design pathway or whatever on these things. Maybe we need to do further work, but wanted to make sure that anything we didn't stop that ability to be investigating that option, because we talked before about that when we were looking at trying to make the cell more palatable versus the transfer, because we all know this has gone in a bit of a over time, different viewpoints, different analyses, and the transfer one was the right thing at one point when we saw some figures and I know you've done a lot of work to try and explain the differences between the different side of things, but it's a high capital cost. So, what options are there for that, which would make life more palatable and take some of the issues that the councillors have asked about around interest principle and things like that. What does modelling look like that under that type of arrangement? We can see that. So, quick answer, has any work been done on that?
So what I can answer to right this minute is recommendation 2 was to do a formal business case in parallel if councillors in principle agree to proceed to that, because the issue we've got is time, right? We're all aware of that. So that we need to, if you choose to continue with Mount Cooee, so that we've got time to go out and tender, go out and get the estimations of costs and the submissions from the tenderers. In parallel, we can work on the item 2, which is the business case, and we'll absolutely include those scenarios in that for you, Steve, as well.
Can I just ask?
And did you do that market research?
Sorry, can I just ask a supplementary one then? At the end of the day, the transfer stations on both options is the same transfer station, is it?
No.
It's not. Quite substantially different.
Ours is a much simpler transfer station.
It's in here.
At the bottom of the entrance to the site, rather than everything being up at the top. Because your resource recovery centre building, which was at the bottom, was
Page 70.
When we did the numbers, it was a very expensive potential building which we didn't have great confidence that they would get the buy-in of the number of people if we were required to have that facility. So what we did was we created at the bottom, you now have as per the drawing. In the
Page 74.
You've got at the moment you take your recycling to a building in town. So one of that will no longer be the case. That will be there on the site. So that cost's gone. And the flat pad which WSP had on the opposite side is now a covered pad, effectively an agricultural shed type building with a series of skips in it, with one area of it flexibly laid out so that you could start by having a really small recovery centre there rather than building this monument to resource recovery, which might not get used. And if you need to, there's enough room on site to expand that at a later date. So it was more of a hedging our bets in terms of would that level of investment in a resource recovery centre prove to be excessive. And just give you something that could start with now and see what the market does. Traditionally, resource recovery centres are inexpensive, don't create revenue, put it that way.
And to answer your other question, Steve, so I know initially that Paul had done some initial sort of market sort of sounding discussions with some commercial operators externally. So that has occurred. However, there's a few different steps that we'd need to do here. One is to, if you approve to proceed with going out to tender in parallel while the business case is done, that's for the construction of the cell. We're also working in the background, if you recall, on the preparation of the new commercial contract for the operational aspect, in which case we can also go out and make inquiries with individuals on opportunities of purchasing partnerships.
And the two are not mutually exclusive.
Yeah.
I think it's important.
So that's different to what this is, but that's to answer that question. It hasn't been forgotten.
Right. Councillor Cathal.
Oh, how many years consent did we get on our,
25.
25.
as of last year?
Yes.
So 24 today.
Yeah.
Councillor Frost.
Through you, Your Worship. Donna, so if we go for the cell 2, and we're only producing 8,000, is there the possibility that we could bring in more refuge at the start to reach the 10,000
Yep,
tonnes, charge a rate above, so we're actually making money out of it to help reduce the capital cost at the beginning, maybe take more than 10,000 for 2 or 3 years just to bring in more income, and then ease that off so that it lasts 25 years as you go. So it's just about, considering all possibilities to keep the refuge centre open in Cleethorpes. Because I'm a little bit in Donna's camp. I think if you end up in a position where we have to cart everything out, eventually you're only going to end up with Browns. One outfit that'll take it and they'll just hike the price up. They're not there to make friends. It's all about cornering the market. And then once you've got that market cornered, then you ramp your rates up. So to me, this, even though it's slightly more expensive at the start, I think we have to look at ways to mitigate that cost initially. And then it gives us and I don't like the word asset when it comes to rubbish, but over time, that income from gas is all going to contribute to the income of the running costs. So reducing your capital input.
So just to answer.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Graham. You've got a recommendation.
No, just wondering, just on that, increasing it to 10,000, blah, blah, blah. Where are we getting that from?
So just to answer Councillor Frost, we most definitely can reach out. We haven't, because we're really mindful at the moment it's a race against time. We've only got till effectively this time next year before our current cell is full. But like I sort of mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, Green Island is currently transporting to Timaru. We'd be a much more favourable, as far as transportation costs, I would have thought, going forward, for them to transport to our cell. It would have to be the new cell, because otherwise you're running the risk of filling before we're ready.
So I had a look at.
Hang on, Councillor Graham.
No, it's just you say it's from Green Island and that, but that's not guaranteed, is it? Like, yeah, if we're struggling, at one stage we're struggling to get enough to break even, or we're balanced, weren't we? You know, so where are we going to get the extra to make it up to 20,000?
So I was trying to work some of these figures out. My big bugbear is on that 36. I've got an issue over interest without principal being paid over 25
Yeah,
years.
but we will do
Okay,
principal
so
and interest.
I can't even make a decision today where I want to go. But I've got enough understanding that it's definitely, this could actually be a great asset for us, and it could actually be an income generating asset. I've got my head around that. But I did do for Councillor Graham, I did inquire. So Waitaki District Council have nothing to do with waste. Waste management own their waste, they run that waste facility. They charge $400 a tonne, and they have bags. So a superannuitant can just have a bag. She might fill one bag, cost her $10, and it might last her a month until she spends $10 to do her refuse. It's $400 a tonne. I think we're charging more than $400 a tonne currently. But that's going to Browns. They're carting all the way, Hilton Haulage are carting all the way to Browns. From Oamaru, and it's a private company. We're currently charging more for refuse services than that. So there's quite a bit to come out. You sort of need to know, really.
So just to sort of segue onto that,
Yeah.
a lot of councils have currently made the decisions not to continue with landfill operations.
Correct.
And I think it is impacting them now. So for example, I know of at least one council, when they had emergency events, they had nowhere for their waste to go.
Yeah.
The bridges were closed, you couldn't get rid of it. It is an asset to retain it. I did give the example of principal and interest over and above what's already been planned in the LTP, those values. To answer your question, Councillor Graham, from the projections that I provided at our last meeting, I showed that we would be breaking even and then making a surplus without these additional costs. I'm still waiting on the final year financials. However, we're looking quite favourable. And that's purely from us running the operation more strategically and making sound business decisions.
Councillor McAtim.
When the thing about other councils is interesting because we're at the start of the amalgamation phase, and there's a lot of potential there. We know Dunedin's still got issues of what they're going to do at Smooth Hill, etc. But if there was to be one big unitary or two unitaries, then all sorts of other options potentially come into play. There's a fair chance that there may be a big landfill built in Otago somewhere. Or that big council will have a fair bit of negotiating power with either Browns or Maroon.
Potentially.
There's a lot of strategic stuff that's sort of up in the air with what we're doing here. We're locking in quite a bit of debt for a new unitary if we take this on too. It's something that may not be to the best advantage.
What we're asking today is for a decision to enable us to continue with the tender documentation and tender submission process, which wouldn't even finish till November, whilst we do the final business case to give you those final questions that you're rightfully asking today.
I can't actually answer them.
I can't answer for unitary. That's the unknown, right? It could be, let's turn it. It could be that we have that asset in place. We have a resource consent for 25 years. The other councils may pay us to have their waste brought to us.
The privateer might want to buy our facility.
It's unknown.
If you enter the private market, I actually think potentially is actually, not to waistcoat. I heard that, Jules. But no, there's a few more options than we were at to green light.
We need to investigate.
Yeah.
I'm prepared to give you more time, but it's from Carol. I'm still very
Sorry?
slightly. It's very wary.
Irrespective, we're still going to have a transfer station.
Pardon?
Councillor McCrosty?
We are going to need.
Because we've got the 25-year consent, why are we rushing it today? We have the option of, yes, we have to build a new cell, get everything in a row. If we had to transport it for a couple of months, we do, but get it. So we can make a proper decision with all the numbers, not just today.
To transfer it out of the district, we would have to build a proper transfer station.
You're going to have to anyway.
And if we wait, our current cell will be full. So you're going to have additional operational costs, additional capital costs, when then if you do make your decision and the decision is delayed, you've just spent $6 million and you might potentially then want to spend the extra money to do the cell. But
Was
it is
that
your
one
decision.
of the options when we were in the same predicament last year, that we were going to have a temporary transfer station? And it was nowhere that expensive.
That was $400,000 for a temporary transfer station, and we proved that we didn't need that because we could utilise the current cell, which is what we're working through now.
But at the moment, if we need to have a temporary station, it's still 400K is still a lot cheaper than the numbers that are getting chucked around at the moment.
It is. It's entirely your decision.
Councillor Graham.
Yeah, I'm just looking at this, the recommendations, and the recommendation is whether we approve the initiation of business case. We're not here to initiate that we're going to spend 23 million. Just wondering if we're making a lot of noise and going nowhere.
A lot of hot air.
The option, one option, if I remember rightly,
Well, you're checking it out.
spend $18.9 million over 25 years.
No. So just to review, the recommendation.
Forecast, sorry, benefits.
Recommendation 2 is to approve or not approve the initiation of a formal business case to confirm the benefits associated with the projected forecasts of 18.9 million for gas capture.
Yeah.
If you proceed with the landfill cell. And because we're incredibly mindful of time, and the last thing I would want to do is to come to you in 6 months' time and say, we've run out of time. And so the other request we're doing is that in parallel, so while we do this good work in the background, that you allow us the ability to go out to potentially do the tenders with procurement, and we can be very clear in the submissions that we're still waiting on our councillors to make their final decision. But if we get all that work done in the background while the business case is done, you're not losing time. You're not running the risk that the cell will fill. You're not spending money that potentially you may not need to spend on a temporary transfer station and additional operational costs to transport out of district. We're just asking to do all this in parallel. We're not saying we're spending it. We're not saying we're committing you to it. That would have to come back to council for your final decision.
And in the meantime, if it comes back in for a final decision, they say no, transfer it out of the district.
We pull the tender.
Yep. But what about the transfer station? How long does it take to get it up and running?
A few months. It'll take a few months.
So
We've
would you
already
not
got
then-
the designs.
Yeah, got the designs, yeah. So we'd possibly keep that in parallel too, would you not?
We could go out to tender for that, but we could. If you chose to request us to do that, we could as well.
Just looking in the worst case scenarios.
Could. Got to be really, yeah, we could.
I was going to say, Your Worship, so really what we're voting on here today is just giving ourselves the option to have cell 2. If we don't go down this path today, if we decide to bump this for next 2 months' time, you're not going to have that option. All the costs are going to increase. That's just how I see it. So, once the discussion's over, I'm quite happy to propose something.
Well, it includes the investigation of a temporary transfer station.
Well,
that's the room full of hot air.
Modeling's there.
Your Worship, sorry, the modelling's there to do that. We've done that, haven't we?
Yeah. It'll
Isn't
need
there in the
refreshed.
report now?
Pardon?
Well, it should have been in here as well, shouldn't it?
Yes.
The temporary transfer station, we've already got the designs, that's already been done.
Yeah.
We've got the cost estimates, we've even had the tender documents, if you recall, we just have to go back out.
Okay, well, Larry's made a recommendation.
No, he hasn't.
Yeah, yes, he said he'd be happy
So
to.
look, I would like to recommend that in option one that we receive the strategic procurement options from Mount Kerry landfill report. And at number 2, the council approves the initial issuing of the formal business case to confirm the benefits or not of 18.9 million over 25 years. And number 3, that the council approves in parallel the advancement of the procurement of design of construction of Mount Cooey. And we could add number 4, where we approve the parallel advancement of a transfer station.
Do I have a seconder? Discussion? No, second was Bruce Brown. Discussion?
Do we need to have 3 councillor Frost? Because your business case would thresh out your viability, wouldn't it?
It's about giving them time so that
You don't need,
all
you
they're
don't
going
need
to
to
do
confirm the
is
advance.
to look into the procurement of the design and the tender process. You don't have to accept anything. It just speeds up the whole process. So if we wait 3 months and say the business case, oh, yep, no, that's all good, well, then you're already 2 months behind. That's why they want to run it in parallel at the same time.
Councillor Cotton?
Thank you, Worship. I agree with Councillor Frost on his camp. I think we'd be silly not to investigate this further. This is a whole lot of work being done here, and it's a great report, so thank you, Donna and team. And I, as I said, we need to investigate this further so we can make an informed decision. So
Whole
I'll be
81
voting for it.
pages, Councillor Cotton.
Pardon?
Whole 81 pages.
Yes, I know, and I read them all just like you.
Encourage the next time to be 120.
I mean, your worship, there's been a lot of questions too. Us.
You haven't gone to the private, without going to the privates.
And all of that will need to be factored into the work on the business case.
I've made notes on that too.
Councillor McAdam.
Yep. No, it's right through this last 3 years, I remain unconvinced on some of the options, but happy as Councillor Frost and Cotton have said to keep advancing, keep it moving.
Don't forget Councillor Brown, he seconded it.
And Councillor.
Right, any further discussion before I take the vote?
Benedict
Rightio, all those in favour of the recommendation that Councillor Frost put forward, please raise your hands.
3 and 4.
Councillor Cathcart, are you voting for it?
I don't even know what I'm talking.
Do you not? But you're quite happy to vote?
Thank you.
Yeah, well, we stopped for a stretch. It's 3:32.
No, it's coming back.
Yeah, that's important.
We'll adjourn the meeting. Welcome there, Craig. Page 101, item number 4.
Thank you, Your Worship.
Right, Your Worship and Councillors, I'd like to table the report, temporary road closure, Captain's Valley Sprint 2026. Take it as read, and is there any questions?
Any questions, councillor? Pretty straightforward, isn't it?
Yeah.
What about the councillor from the
Yes, we
Caverns? Is he happy with it? Comfortable with that?
Happy to move.
Only time today. It's
I'll second.
Yeah.
happy to move. Will we take both at once?
Yep.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Carried.
Thank you.
That was a long way.
Thank you.
2 in a row, right?
Probably took him longer to retire.
Right. Page 104, item number 5. Report on electoral decision briefing. Things are going quicker with you. Yeah, right. You can go back. Welcome, Peter.
Thank you. This paper's been prepared in conjunction with the electoral services who support council in relation to electoral matters, most recently with the 2025 council election. Judith Osofsky and Stacey Siddle from election services are with us today to provide a presentation on the matters raised in the report. To note in that regard, in the recommendations, the reference that was to be provided by Dale Osofsky should be replaced with Judith and Stacey. And with that, I'll take the report as read. And through you, Your Worship, if you would like, we'll start the presentation.
That'll be lovely. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you. Thank you for the kind welcome. As mentioned, I'm Stacey from Election Services, and this is Judith. Hi, everyone. Sitting in for Dale Osofsky, who sends his apologies. You've probably seen and dealt with him in the past, and or my colleague Ben Rosa, both are out of the office at the moment, so Judith and I have stepped in. So thank you for the introduction. Today we're here just to give you a little bit of information about the democratic review process that will need to occur starting shortly, leading up to the 2028 elections. So you should have a copy of the slideshow that we've prepared, and we'll work through that and hopefully give you a little bit of background knowledge so that when the time comes for your next council meeting, which I believe is the 20th of August, you'll feel a little bit more informed to make some of these decisions. We'll work slide by slide, and I'll endeavour to let you know which slide I'm working on so you can orientate yourself on the handout. So we'll start with slide 2, just giving you an overview of what we're going to cover today. So we will discuss why these issues are before council now. We'll go through your current arrangements. We'll discuss the electoral system, multi-wards, representation arrangements review, and to wrap up, we'll just get a little bit of guidance from council, or we can have a little bit of Q&A, questions and answers on what we've covered. So if we move on to slide 3, why is this before council now? So you'll be aware that the local elections occur every 3 years. The next local government election is coming up on the 14th of October 2028. In readiness for those elections, there are, under the legislation, a few electoral decisions that as council you're required to make. So the first of those relates to your electoral system, and it's simply a decision or a resolution on whether you choose to keep FPP as your electoral system or whether you wish to change to STV. The second decision that is required under legislation is whether you wish to introduce Māori wards or whether you wish for Clutha District Council to remain without any Māori wards. Those two decisions are required under the legislation to be made by the 12th of September. And the third decision or consideration that you need to be aware of is whether you wish to conduct a representation arrangements review or whether you wish to keep your existing arrangements. So you're probably well aware that you undertook a representation review prior to the 2025 local government election. There is no statutory requirement for you to undertake a review prior to 2028, but you can choose to do that optionally if you wish to. So you're only required to do that every 6 years, or if you choose to introduce Māori wards. So moving on to slide 4, these decisions need to be made alongside the simplifying local government process, which is currently underway. Simplifying local government is a little bit of a fly in the ointment. However, the existing legislation means that you do have statutory obligations, and we need to follow that existing legislation and adhere to those obligations until such time as the legislation is changed, and that may include your decisions regarding simplifying local government. If Clutha District Council is amalgamated with one or more other councils, the effect of these decisions may be considered during the detailed design phase. So it's a good idea for you to table them now and get a good sense of how you want Clutha District Council to look, to be represented and to operate should you amalgamate with another council under that simplifying local government scheme. So if we move along to slide 5, considering your electoral system. Your electoral system is currently first past the post electoral system. So you have a certain number of vacancies and voters are required to tick up to that number of vacancies, their preferred candidates. In terms of Māori wards, Māori wards have not been established for Clutha District Council. These were considered prior to the 2025 elections, but a decision was made not to establish them. And with regard to your representation arrangements, you're probably very familiar with this. You have your mayor who's elected at large, 9 councillors elected from 8 wards, and 12 community board members who are elected from 2 community boards. So that's just a general overview for you guys of what needs to be considered and where things are currently at in terms of your council. And we'll just methodically work through the electoral system, Māori wards, and the option of undertaking a representation review, starting off with the electoral system on slide 6. And I'm going to pass over to Judith because she's more of an expert in this field than I am. So,
thanks, Stacey. So, as Stacey said, you're currently using First Past the Post or FPP. And that's used by about 62 other organisations, PAs or regional councils. And it's a simple option, everyone's familiar with it. And as Stacey said, you vote by ticking the candidates you can tick up to the number of vacancies. So if it's for the mayor, you can only put 1 tick. If you've got, in this little example on that page, there are 3 councillors to be elected, you can tick up to 3. And of course, the candidates with the most votes are elected. And in an NPP election, a voting document is considered blank if there are no ticks, and it's considered informal if there are too many ticks, or if somebody has numbered them and numbers more than the number of vacancies. So if we go to slide 7, single transferable voting, or STV. This is used by Dunedin City Council and 14 others. It's easy for electors to vote because they just put 1, 2 or 3 or etc, etc. But it's not so easy to count, and it's not so easy for people to understand. It's not easy for them to understand where their vote has gone to, because it's one vote that could be split into percentages that go to different candidates. So you vote by ranking the candidates in the order of your preference. So obviously the person that you like the most, you put a 1 beside. The next person that's your next favourite, you put a 2 beside, etc, etc. And candidates need to reach a quota to be elected. So on slide 8, we talk about that quota. So in order to be elected, a candidate needs to reach the quota, and that quota is made up of the number of countable votes divided by the number of vacancies plus 1 and plus that fraction. So, for example, we put an example there. If there are 20,104 votes cast for one position election, the quota is 20,104 divided by 2 plus that fraction. So you've got 10,052 votes that a candidate needs to reach to be elected. So if we go to slide 9. So for SPP, before I go to that, well, I mentioned before for SPP what a blank vote was and what an informal vote was. For STV, a blank vote is where somebody has put no preferences on their page, on their voting document. And informal is if there's no 1, if there must be a 1, or if there are more than one 1. And if you've got 2 different electoral systems on a page, some people will, you've got FPP and STV, some people will just put ticks everywhere. And so if you've got, for an STV election, if somebody has ticked, if they put 1 tick, that can be counted as a 1. But if they put more than 1 tick, then there's no way of knowing which is their first preference. And so that's informal. So the way that votes are counted under STV is the first preferences, or the number 1s, are counted first. And any candidate who reaches that quota is elected. And if a candidate is elected and there's still more vacancies to be filled, then the surplus votes for that candidate, and that means that any votes that exceed that quota, if they get too many votes or more votes than the quota, those votes are reduced in value, and a part of those people's votes are transferred to their next preference. And so if no candidate reaches the quota, the lowest candidate, or if we haven't got enough people that have reached the quota, the lowest candidate is excluded, and those votes are transferred to the next preference on those voting documents. And then this process of excluding the lowest candidate and transferring the votes to the next preference carries on until every position is filled. I can answer any other questions that you may have on that, but that's basically the simple version of the difference between FPP and STV. So if we go to slide 10, as has been said, the council needs to make a resolution by the 12th of September to either keep FPP or change to STV, or to hold a poll of electors on which system they want to use. And then a public notice is required within 7 days of that resolution or by the 19th of September. And slide 11. So if council resolves to keep SPP or change to STV, either of those, a public notice is required. And in that public notice, we are notified that electors may demand a poll. 5% of electors can demand a poll, and that has to be done by the 11th of December 2026. If no poll is demanded, then council's resolution stands. If a poll is demanded, that poll has to be held by 28th of March 2027. And that poll result determines the electoral system under the current legislation for the next 2 elections. And council can also resolve to hold a poll, and if they do, that poll also must be held by the 28th of March, and that result of that poll determines the electoral system for the next 2 elections under the current legislation. I'll hand back to Stacey to continue with the presentation.
I just wondered whether now might be a good opportunity if anyone has any questions about FPP versus STV, maybe we can endeavour to answer them now before we move on to the next topic. Or is everyone okay for us to carry on?
I don't think there's a hunger for STV, to be quite honest, girls.
Okay.
I'll give you a recommendation. It was still a very good explanation though, Judith.
Thanks. In that case, we'll move on to the next point for consideration, which is whether or not to establish Māori wards. So as I mentioned before, Clutha District Council currently does not have Māori wards. However, council may resolve to establish 1 or more Māori wards in the lead up to the 2028 elections. If you choose to establish 1 or more Māori wards, there is a formula that applies, and that is used to determine the ratio of Māori and general ward councillors, and it's based on electoral population. So we've done some preliminary workings and looked at your electoral population, and Clutha's ratio would likely result in no more than 1 Māori ward councillor. For it to increase to 2, I think the number of councillors that you would need would have to increase to approximately 21. And I know that you've just reduced your number of councillors prior to 2025, so whether that's appealing to you or not is a decision for you to make. So in 2023, Clutha opted not to establish Māori wards, and that was following consultation with your local iwi, Ngāi Tahu. So moving on to slide 13, for Māori wards to apply in 2028, a council resolution is required by the 12th of September 2026. Same dates as for the electoral system, and a public notice is required by a week later, by the 19th of September 2026. And as was the case with the electoral system, electors are able to demand a poll on whether Māori wards should be established at any time. If the poll is received by the 11th of December, the poll is required to be completed by the 28th of March 2027. And the result would apply for the next 2 elections. If the poll is received after the 11th of December, the petition is the demand, is received after the 11th of December, Māori wards poll could potentially be held with your 2028 elections. And something to bear in mind is that if you do choose to establish Māori wards, a representation review would be required in 2027 to reflect that there is a Māori ward. We mentioned that for the electoral systems and for the Māori wards, that electors can demand a poll. If a demand for a poll is received, it needs to be signed by 5% of electors. Based on your 2025 statistics, that would equate to approximately 619 electors. So just a little bit of further information for you there. So that's a simplified overview of consideration of Māori wards. And I guess your decision for 2028 will again be guided on discussions with your local iwi and whether they have any view on whether Māori wards should be established this time around or not. So if we move on to slide 14, and we will look to discuss the representation review. So a representation review is a review of basically the arrangements of your council, of your district. We're looking at things like the number of councillors, the number of wards that are deemed to be appropriate, ward boundaries, community boards, and a representation review is required at least once every 6 years. So your last review was in 2024, as I mentioned earlier. Legally, your next one is not due until 2030, and I'll qualify that and just say unless you choose to establish Māori wards. However, you can voluntarily do one in 2027. It's entirely a decision for you to make. With regard to the 2024 review, your number of councillors was reduced from 14 to 9. Ward boundaries were adjusted to fit new councillor members, and community boards were retained. So you guys made some quite significant changes in 2024. And you may wish to revisit those changes, whether you've had feedback from the public or whether you as elected members have a view on how that current arrangement is working. You have the opportunity to revisit that in 2027 if you wish. So moving on to slide 15, if a representation review is undertaken, council must consider three particular points. The first of those is communities of interest, and I'll go into a little bit more detail on each of these points. The second is effective representation. So is your communities of interest effectively represented? And the third of those is fair representation, and that fair representation takes into account your population figures, and there's a little rule, we call it the plus or minus 10% rule, and that looks at whether your number of councillors based on your population within that ward fits within a plus or minus 10% rule. If it fits within the plus or minus 10% rule, it's a good thing. If it doesn't, your arrangements will need to go, your final proposal or your arrangements will need to go to the local government commission for their consideration. So if we just elaborate on slide 16 on communities of interest.
Excuse me, ladies.
Yes.
Yeah, sorry, I was just checking in with His Worship, and we had a big agenda, and it's not your fault, we've been taking a lot of time to get to this point. His Worship and I have just conferred, and we were looking at the particular resolutions that were asked for this, which was effectively to agree to a program of work. I understand that it's still important to have definition to things. A lot of the councillors have gone through this process before. We do have some new councillors, so that is true. I was just thinking in the interest of time, however, we might have to look at cutting this short. And I was just wondering, given that council has got the presentation and that if I sort of said to you that we are short of time, and given that, is there any sort of short summary you might give of what's left that's important to council to consider? Because they're not actually making decisions today other than to agree to a timetable. Sorry, that's nothing to do with you, your presentation. It's purely where we are in the afternoon.
Yep. Well, I can skip a few slides. We've probably covered electoral system, Maori wards, and representation review. It's probably important for you guys to know that the status quo with your wards as they currently are, they are all compliant with the plus or minus 10% criteria. You're not required to do a representation review this time around, and you could just sit quite happily and say, look, we're happy in the knowledge that our current arrangements are compliant, and we'll delay the next review to the next term.
However, as Stacey said before, it's probably a good idea to think about, the council to think about how, with the simplifying local government, how you would like Clutha to look. If you're part of an amalgamated council, it's a good idea to think about that, and so that you're front-footing it and you're prepared with what you want to bring to that table.
Or we get a choice though.
Do you envisage that true evaluation will still run on the same basis of plus or minus 10%? Would that rule change?
That's a good question. And we're probably as in the dark as that with regards to that as you are. Yeah, we'll have to wait and see what the Department of Internal Affairs come out with, whether there's any kind of legislative change with regard to that.
And I understand there's been no indication of any changes at the moment, and they're supposed to be coming up with something in September, but they haven't said when in September, so it's all a little bit up in the air.
Yeah, that's right.
So I guess just to summarise in a couple of sentences, we need to kind of operate under the current legislation. Under that legislation, you are required to make decisions on your electoral system, so whether you retain FPP or change to SDB, whether you consider the introduction of Māori wards, and as I said, that could be guided by discussions with your local iwi, and whether there is any appetite for another representation review, noting that you're not legally required to do that, and you may just want to say that you have considered the representation arrangements review and that you've chosen not to do one simply because everything's so up in the air with this simplifying local government concept.
Cool.
Yeah.
Any further questions for the girls? Any discussion? Councillor Brown.
Yeah, I just wonder if there's any value in going to and to have it as councillors at large, with the thought that come amalgamation there's probably going to be less councillors and be representing basically the whole district rather than ward specific, and then
deal with that when it comes.
Just an answer that if we don't do the Head Start like we discussed yesterday, which would apply to 2028, so you would be proposing representation arrangements and that through legislation for an entity in 2028. But we talked about that as to whether that's an option, and it doesn't seem like that is an option. And then you've got the next elections in 2031. So you'd be working through something. The whole point of whatever you're working around changing territorial authority boundaries and creating one TA or whatever, is that part of that process has to also go and determine the representation arrangements.
Yeah.
So that's all going to change regardless. So even if you made a change here, which we don't have to because we don't actually have to do a representation review, but even if you did to go to at large, it makes no difference at all really, because you're starting from scratch again for 2031. Because you're going to have one entity that's going to have to go through the process in some form to determine what representation is going to be. All that's got to be done for the 2031 elections, if that's the case.
I won't be around then.
No. Do you intend on being here then, Councillor?
It's your seat.
Any further discussion?
We might be part of 100 or 200,000 people.
Any further discussion? Would someone like to make a recommendation?
Do you want to get some time in there? I'd happily do some recommendation. I'd happily
That'd be lovely because you're very good at using time, Councillor.
move recommendation 1 and 2. My recommendation 3, if you want to really get some time, can we make decisions today
No.
on our choices? Why?
Because
Why not?
Because there's still further work to be done on some of them to make an informed decision and not be subject to challenge.
Very easy to.
Tonight, we'd like to be there.
1, 2, 3.
Seconded by Councillor Graham. Any further discussion? I'll ask all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against? Carried. Thank you, ladies.
Some pre-recommendations.
Your Worship, sorry, we've got the next item coming up on the agenda. And then
Thank
while
you.
while Cosmos is coming up, I just wanted to raise with you and the council about the time where we're going on time for decisions. We still have 2 groups of external people that are scheduled to participate. One of them is the investment options.
Yeah.
And so the suggestion is for that one that we move that ahead of the schedule to be after this decision. And then the other one is the lawyers for the public excluded item.
Yeah.
And so I know that it's not always a good thing to do, but the suggestion is that we move to public excluded to address that item while we can get the lawyers, and then come back. And the only decision item after that is the LGNZ decision, which is the remit decisions, then minutes, then updates, and that. So we can whiz through those ones.
Yeah.
If council's comfortable with that, then we can address the people that we have externally coming. Okay,
Let's go.
Go
Cosmos.
Thank you. I'm here to present the Asset Management Policy Review Report. Check the report is read. I'm happy to take any questions.
Moving.
Page number, please.
111.
Okay.
Receive the asset management policy
Yes,
report. Council adopts. Council. Update policy September.
Questions, councillors? Councillor McTammany, is that a question or?
Scratching your head again.
I don't know whether it's been controversial or not.
Yep.
Just be who you are. Be true to yourself.
Yeah, I had a read of the report. I had a read back of the previous report done 2022. The 2022 one seemed a lot sharper to me, and there was a few things here. Personally, I struggled with on asset management as to where incorporating PL Murray values. Why why that isn't so important for discussing things like roading, footpaths, and who has to. Is that for staff to incorporate, or is that what councillors are expected to? Yeah, I just sort of wonder. It just seemed to me to be very. How would you call it? The old word was politically correct, and I think they. I just sort of wondered why that was so important in an asset management. And we're talking about basic utilities structures.
Through your worship, so we, as mentioned in the principles, we work according to APOPO, the National Asset Management Institute. So the values that are in this policy are national values, and the definition of those values is there in the definition of terms, and they're really speaking to how we are custodians of the environment, how it relates to other people. We make our decisions. So that includes how we do things like consultation, how we plan for the future generations and things like that. So these are values that are quite industry standard across New Zealand. So if you look at the references, we've got the APOPO guide, which is New Zealand's professional guide to asset management, and that's where values stem from.
Yeah, I just brought the subject up because it's just whether it adds value or does it add cost. Some of that stuff.
That's the question, isn't it? Does it add cost?
Oh, it doesn't add cost. It's more value because it's a guide that allows us to go through certain steps when making decisions, just to understand that the decisions that we're making are environmentally sustainable. Are we considering future generations? Do we do consultation?
Values are an interesting concept, aren't they? But I just, okay.
So our staff are aware of those principles, Te Ao Māori principles.
Yes.
They're trained in that, aren't they?
So our asset management teams are members of APOPO and they have access to this guide.
I am sceptical of whether it adds value or cost. No, probably. I could only see things happening slower and more costly. That's the, because we are talking about basic infrastructure here. Anyway, that's okay. I said I was going to be controversial, so.
It could be interpreted another way.
I agree, Simon.
No, it's not. It's not controversial. The straight question is: will it delay in time, and will it add cost? Because we're meant to be simplifying things, aren't we? Trying to look for efficiencies. So it's actually a fair question. No problem.
Yeah,
but it's a requirement, isn't it? So
yeah, it's good practice.
Yeah.
And what it does is it gives you a clear guideline or clear steps, a framework. If you work within that framework, you're actually checking what the impacts of what you're doing on the environment, whether you're doing right consultation within the community, whether you're considering future generations, and it doesn't necessarily add more cost. But what it does, it gives you confidence that you've not left any blind spots when you are making decisions. That's what the framework does.
If you look, if I refer you to the definitions,
yeah,
if you look at it, it's written actually in a way that is that doesn't. It has a lot of non-Māori descriptors in it. So they're describing it in a te ao te reo way, but the descriptor is not specific to te reo or to Māori values. Every one of them is described in a more generalist fashion. So they've only used the framework and the concept of te ao to describe it. So I don't think there's any issues, controversy or concerns about the descriptors. Every one of those descriptors in the definition are things that we would be looking at it from an asset perspective.
Any further questions for Cosmos?
So you've got to do it, ain't you? So yeah, You might as well just fire your recommendations away and accept the whole lot of them.
Would someone like to make a recommendation?
You can't change it.
Would you like, someone like to make a recommendation?
Looking back page now.
Page 111, for the recommendation.
Would someone like to make a
1, 2, 3,
recommendation?
4, and 5. Happy to move 1 through to 5.
Happy to second.
Further discussion? And if there's no further discussion, I'll put it to the vote, please. All those in favour?
Aye.
Aye. Carried.
Thank you. All
Change
Unanimous.
So we are jumping to
We're jumping to page
221.
221. Welcome, Sharon. Page 221, item number 8.
Yep, thank you, Your Worship. And I'd like to introduce Ben, who's on Teams for us, who's come along today to help out with the very technical side of this that Sharon does not understand as well as Ben does.
Kia ora, Ben. Welcome to the CDC.
Hi, good to see you all.
We've all agreed.
So this, we're bringing this paper to you today because JP Morgan made a decision to close a fund that we have as part of our portfolio at Amova. And Amova contacted us about it, and consequently so did Ben. Ben has reviewed our asset allocation and made a recommendation to us, which we have in here today. And I guess, Ben, do you have any more to add to that? You want any explanation or anything to add to that?
Yeah, no, it's hopefully pretty straightforward. Unfortunately, this fund has been has not, I guess, attracted assets from JP Morgan's perspective enough for it to be a profitable vehicle going forward, and therefore they've taken the decision to close it. So it's really out of Amova's control and also out of our control. It's a little bit disappointing because this fund as an alternative investment has kind of done what's expected of it. It's done a decent return with a low volatility. It's actually outperformed bonds and cash and the New Zealand share market. The only thing it hasn't outperformed is US equities with that strong run into AI stocks and the like. So I guess you can understand why JP Morgan might be struggling to sell something when the only thing everyone wants to buy is US technology stocks. So it's unfortunate, but it is being wound up in an orderly manner, and it requires us to update our instructions to Amova because they manage the portfolio to this set of allocations. And so I proposed a revised set of allocations that broadly keep the portfolio the same, but exiting that fund.
Yep. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah, makes sense to me.
1, 2, and 3.
Yep, I'll second.
Right, any questions? For Sharon?
Oh, Simon, did you want to know? Do you want to ask him about the?
No, I'm not too worried. I've had it work out.
Questions for Sharon?
Yeah, we're all happy.
Yeah. Really?
Well, Your Worship, the other fund's being closed. They've offered an alternative that's very, very similar. So, and it's looked after us in the past. So on that note, I'm happy to move 1, 2, and 3 forward.
Do we have a seconder? Yep. Move Cotton, second Catherwood. Any further discussion? Pretty straightforward. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, Ben.
Thank you, nice and easy. Talk to you later.
Now, would someone like to move that we move it to public excluded?
Yep, happy to move.
Councillor Kennedy, seconded Councillor Catherwood. All those in favour? Aye. We'll give it a couple of minutes.
Remember, lawyers cost money.